So last time we were together, we just started chapter 12. I'll just read the end of the pages that I was on. After 5 minutes of silent sobbing and thinking that if love could bring back someone who has died, then Mum would be right here in the room behind me, whispering in my ear how much she loved me, I turned to go back to bed. That's when it happens. A paper crane spirals to the floor right beside me. The paper crane must be magical, I decide. It's definitely not one of my efforts, because it has been folded perfectly. It's not the original crane either. That one is still on my desk. Nope. This is like something a magician would do. Abracadabra. Open his hat and pull out one rabbit, and then a second identical rabbit would follow. I bring it to school with me on Monday because I can't bear to leave it at home. For ages I stare at it under the table, not stopping even when Mr. Beagle tells us to get out some paper and begin drawing our garden designs. You've had time to consider it. You've been to a garden centre and now is the time for action, Mr. Beagle continues. And Beckett, can you stop staring at the crotch of your trousers, please? There is a ripple of laughter as I snap my head upwards and nearly give myself whiplash. When the hysteria dies down, everyone gets out some paper and starts writing and drawing ideas for poop. Neva nudges me with the point of a set square from her next door desk, and when I glance up, she holds up her sheet of paper, on which she has drawn a load of butterflies. She gives me the thumbs up and points to my bracelet. I give her the thumbs down and point to my bracelet. I lean over and say, bracelets are a girl thing. Oh, no way, hisses Neva. Not this one. Boys need good things to happen to them too. That's why you've got it on your wrist. She reaches across the desk and tries to grab my hand, only I pull away. Seriously, remember what I said. My sister came back and she was a butterfly, and afterwards I felt really happy, and it was an amazing thing. So now I'm spreading that amazing thing about. You just don't believe in good things, maybe because bad things have happened in the past. But mark my words, Beckett Ramsey, I can feel something important is going to happen to you. What happened with your sister? I ask. She came back as a butterfly. I told you, explains Neva. It was as if by magic. When I least expected it. One day a butterfly just landed on me. Oh, I know you'll think there's a logical explanation, but there wasn't. Yes, I do think there is a logical explanation, because butterflies land on people sometimes. The thing is, the butterfly stayed on me for ages. When it eventually flew away, I went straight home and looked up butterflies on the computer, and it said that they were a symbol of a soul, explains Neva. It made me think about how I'd been sad about my sister for ages, but I felt happy after seeing the butterfly, because it was her. It was as if the time was right to move forward. Knuckles turns round and tells Neva something weird happened to him too only a few days ago. This snail flew down from the sky and landed on my head, he hisses. See, says Neva, magic is all around us. I have to bite my cheek really hard not to laugh, but then I figure it's no laughing matter because a strange paper bird did exactly the same thing to me. Mr. Beagle bellows that a classroom is not the place for chatting, and we're to finish up on poop because it's time for lunch. With that, the bell pops, and I don't know what else Mr. Beagle is trying to say, because the entire class are vaulting desks to escape. The last thing I hear from our teacher is, Eden Echo, but no one cares. I'm standing by the wall in the playground, near the water fountain to be precise, when Knuckles walks past with a tennis ball in his ham hands. Hey, I say, staring at his wrist, you've got one in Neva's bracelets too. Knuckles throws the ball against the wall and then catches it. Quickly I hold up my wrist to prove she's given me one as well. Knuckles stops and shrugs in a so what kind of way. He puts the ball in his pocket. I sort of like it, I mutter, twanging the rubber bracelet like a guitar string. Anyway, who wouldn't want a bit of magic in their life? If you could have a bit of magic happen, what would it be? I reach down and scratch my leg. My dad back, Knuckles says as I bob back up again. My eyes widen. I understand, I reply. I mean, I know what it's like when someone has passed on. I tilt my head, wanting to make conversation, to prove that we're both similar. We've both lost someone. Knuckles smirks at me and pulls the ball from his pocket again. Passed on? You mean dead? Passed on? So that's what you meant by a better place. You really don't have a clue about me and my dad. And that's when Knuckles walks away, bouncing the ball up and down and then kicking it out the wall. Oh man, I'm even more confused about him than I was before. At 3:40, Billy and I are walking home from school when we spot Dad's van outside a bubblegum pink house. Not only is it very hard to miss the house, but it's also very hard to miss Dad's van due to the giant plastic cod on the roof. Why is Daddy here? Asked Billy, picking some mud out of his fingernails. He stops and stares up at the house, which has ivy strangling the walls and tiny windows that look like the top of one of Ibiza Nana's lattice pies. I don't know. Maybe he's delivering fish, I explain, grimacing. A nanosecond of thought tells me he isn't actually delivering fish, because Dad doesn't deliver to houses, only restaurants. I hoist my school bag back up onto my shoulder and stare at the house, as if I half expect it to provide some answers. It doesn't. We could go and knock on the door, Billy offers. To reinforce this idea, he knocks on my head with his knuckles, and then I knock on his, but it sounds hollow. Then we would know why Daddy is in there, says Billy, ducking away from me. What if Dad doesn't want us to know he's in there? Billy hasn't thought of that, but I just have. What if this is Camille's house? My eyes widen and the words hula hoop inside my head. What if this is Camille's house? What if we're not supposed to know that Dad is here? Before I can say anything more, Billy takes off like a greyhound, dashes through the gate, and throws himself onto the grass like a splattered octopus. I shout the first thing that comes into my head. Get out of there, you idiot! Then I shout the second thing that comes in my head. Before you get caught! Billy isn't budging. He says this is where he's going to wait until Dad comes out of the front door. Well, I'm not taking this lying down, even if Billy is. I march right over to him and try to drag him by the arm. Unfortunately, Billy has managed to pull off the best trick ever, and that is to assume the weight of a baby hippopotamus instead of my baby brother. As I give one final tug on Billy's arm, he yanks me down until I'm sprawled out beside him. The door opens. The door closes. A woman with long brown hair appears on the pathway beside us, wearing a dark blue coat and red polka dot scarf. The look on her face when she spots us is priceless. At this point, Billy's chin is balanced on the earth, and he has a mouthful of grass clenched between his teeth. When the woman bends over and asks what we think we're doing, Billy mumbles that he's cutting the grass. What? With your teeth? Quizzes the woman. Donkeys do, says Billy triumphantly. Donkeys do, I hiss as we walk towards home. Man alive, why did you say that? She must have thought we were stupid, or at least you were. Billy just shrugs and says it's a shame we didn't see Daddy before we had to go. I say it was probably the best option, as the lady was going to ring the police. As we turn into our road, I realise this isn't a love triangle anymore. No, this is a love pentagon. There's Dad, Pearl, Naked Man, Camille, and now the lady in the polka dot scarf who thinks we are human lawnmowers. Dad arrives home shortly after us and throws his white jacket over the sofa before tickling Billy and asking if he's had a good day at school. Billy says he's forgotten what sort of day he had, and Dad said that's okay because it's very easy to forget stuff. After Dad has ordered takeaway and we're sitting at the table, Billy blurts out, "Why were you at the pink house today, Daddy?" What pink house? Dad's head goes red as an embarrassed tomato, and then he changes the subject. Obviously, Dad's right. It's very easy to forget stuff, especially when you don't want anyone to know what that stuff is. Chapter 13. Thanks to what Billy Bigmouth Rumsey said last night, Dad now knows that we know some stuff, but what stuff we know Dad doesn't know, and we don't know how much stuff we actually know. Basically, all the stuff to do with Dad and Pearl is jumbled up, and that's where we are right now. At school, I draw a pentagon and add all the relevant names in at the points. Dad, Pearl, Camille, Naked Man, Spotty Scarf Woman. I try to draw lines across the centre to see who will end up with whom. I've drawn a line between Dad and Pearl, and then paired the Naked Man off with Camille, but the lady with the polka dot scarf is on her own. Sitting back, I admire my quite excellent diagram, only for Mr. Beagle to wander past me, and bellow that it's a fine drawing of a pentagon, but if I hadn't noticed we are actually talking about poop at the moment. So we are nearly at the end of the first phase of poop, says Mr. Beagle, wandering back to the front of the class and tugging on his tie. He looks over and ignores Dante Moffat, who has his hand up. The next phase is for you to finish your designs, and I will announce the winner. Then we will plant the garden, and of course the final and most exciting phase is when we invite your parents to come and marvel at their offspring's talent. Oh, fabulous. As if it wasn't feeling rotten enough, Mr. Beagle has just reminded me that Pearl won't be coming to poop. I glance over at Knuckles, and he looks just as miserable as me. Maybe he's annoyed that his dad can't come too. As I catch his eye, he looks away and pretends to be busy, picking his nose. Mr. Beagle says we have probably noticed that there is a table with items on it that we could add into our garden designs. You may not have considered things like this going in a garden. For example, CDs. They glint in the light, look amazing, and keep birds away. Practical and pretty. Please take a look, and you may choose something from the table and include it in your design, or not. You are the designer here. Everyone gets up to look at the items Mr. Beagle has brought in. They include CDs from the 90s, vintage, as Ibiza Nana would say, old, I would say. An old washing machine drum, Mr. Beagle says we could put flowers in it. Used tin cans, Mr. Beagle eats a lot of beans. A biscuit tin, Mr. Beagle also eats a lot of biscuits. A toy yellow dumper truck, again for plants, says Mr. Beagle. And an old boot. Knuckles strolls over to the table and picks up the dumper truck. Mimi is saying how she wouldn't touch anything here with a barge pole, which is lucky because there is no barge pole. She rises from her chair and then saunters over to me at the table and mutters in my ear. Nothing here for you, then? I just shrug, and she continues. I'm going to win anyway. My mum says I'm great at everything I do because I'm just like her. I'm always top of the class. That's when Knuckles accidentally knocks Mimi with the dumper truck, and she squeals that he's a complete idiot. Just like your dad. I read about him in the paper. I see fury erupt in Knuckles' chest. Just as it's about to kick off, I get in between them. Suddenly, Knuckles shoot forward and biff me right in the belly. Unfortunately, my belly does not have a sniff of muscle. Fortunately, I have about 4 folds of flesh that act like a trampoline, and his knuckles bounce straight off. Without warning, my own hands fly forward and grab his wrists in a vice-like grip. Next, he twists around as if he's dancing, and that's when Mr. Beagle starts shouting that poop is not about having a wrestling match, and if we don't stop tussling, we'll be in big trouble. What's this all about? Snaps Mr. Beagle, separating us. I don't know, sees Knuckles, but he does know. It was because Mimi said Knuckles was an idiot like his dad. How could she say that about someone who has died? I don't like Mimi one little bit. Mr. Beagle tells us to get out of his sight, and I hurry away as quickly as possible. Back at my desk, I pretend to be busy, finishing my design for poop. Neva, seeing my sad face, strolls past, and before she can say a word to me about butterflies, I say the bracelet isn't making anything amazing happen. In fact, it's making things go even worse. Look, I nearly got into a big fight wearing it. Haven't you heard that it's always darkest before the dawn? Whispers Neva, before walking back to her desk, humming as she goes. Haven't you heard that butterflies are just butterflies, and bracelets don't make amazing things happen? I holler after her. Neva glances back, and I can tell she's upset with me. After school, when I switch on my mobile, there's a text from Dad. We need to talk. Dad. X. I text back. Is it about the birds and the bees? Beck. No, it isn't. You're too young to know about the birds and the bees. Okay, so if it's not a talk about growing up, then Dad's going to tell us what's going on with him and Pearl, and why he didn't sound happy to get a phone call from her on Friday. He must have been spurred on because he knows we saw him at a polka dot scarf lady's bubblegum house. Dad picks us up from the school gates and takes us to the park across the road from our flat. When Billy runs off and lunges at a swing, Dad turns to me and says, "We need this little chat. I've been meaning to do it for ages." Okay. I inhale, thinking that this is the moment the world will become clear again, like when you're in a car wash and 1 minute surrounded by foam and the next you can see better than ever. I breathe out as Dad reaches into his pocket and removes his mobile phone, before rummaging around for a tissue and then blowing his nose. He sets his phone down on the bench and settles beside it. Billy goes up and down and up and down and up on the swing. He'll be seasick, says Dad, grinning. I sit down beside him, and Dad takes the breath of a deep-sea diver before saying, I wanted to talk to you because we've not had enough fun in this family recently. Sweet baby Jesus, is that it? Is that what the big talk was about? This is a bigger disappointment than when Ibiza Nana said she bought me a tablet and it turned out to be a Scottish tablet, which was like hard fudge. Let's have a flat warming party. How about next Tuesday? That gives us a week to organise it. Is that it? I'm screaming inside my head. Nothing about Pearl or Camille or the lady that trotted out of the bubblegum pink house with the polka dot scarf. There's a tiny thread on my school jumper, and as I tug it, it begins to unravel. In fact, I'm so annoyed that if I pull any harder, I'm not going to have a jumper left. Dad continues. It's exactly what we all need, so I'll arrange it for next Tuesday at 7:30. I'll invite a few of the fish delivery blokes, and you and Billy can invite anyone you like. This is not a chat about what is going on. This is nothing to do with why Pearl isn't with us and why he doesn't want us to make contact with her or for her to contact us. This is nothing to do with Camille. This is nothing to do with how Billy and I feel. This is just like adding a cherry onto a cake that is already stale. Dad furrows his brow when he sees my face is sourer than a super sour sweet. Don't you want a party? I nod and say very carefully that I do want one, but Billy has just run across the park and fallen in a heap on the floor because clearly he has no awareness of how his feet actually work and has managed to trip himself up. As Dad goes to help Billy, his mobile bleeps, and even though I think about calling Dad back, I can't resist reading the text first. Hey, I'm only human. Hi Stephen, it's Camille. It was a pleasure to see you yesterday. Feel free to come back at any time. Orla will be here if I'm not around. You could see her, or if not Orla, try Kimberly. I'll give you a ring at some point anyway. Busted! Dad was most definitely with Camille yesterday, and it sounds like there's loads of others too. This isn't a love pentagon, it's a love dodecahedron. When Dad comes back, I pretend I haven't been looking at anything anywhere near his phone. Oh no. In fact, all this time I've been staring up into the sky at a seagull flying overhead and praying it hasn't eaten anything dodgy. Dad parks his bum back on the bench and picks up his phone, glancing at the message. His ears turn a funny shade of red, and he clears his throat before putting the mobile back in his pocket. Any messages? I blink innocently. Nope, replies Dad. I'm Daddy no mates. It's on the tip of my tongue to say I doubt that very much, only Dad stops me in my tracks by saying, Your mother loved a party. Billy's back on the swings now, going up and down and up. I'd like to shout at Dad, Don't change the subject! But at the same time, I want to change the subject because we never talk about Mum enough. Yeah, she always was at the heart and soul of a good party, Dad sighs. Your Mum and I came here before, right to this spot. Did you know that? I shake my head. We lived in the house in Honeydown Hills but came here for a little day trip to see a seal. I swallow. Did you see one? Dad smiles and ruffles my hair with his fingers. No, but Mum found this old glass water bottle on the beach and said she wanted to do something special. I remember the photo I saw in Dad's bedroom in the flat where Mum was holding a bottle. She wanted to send a message in a bottle. Well, I told her it was pointless doing that because no one ever bothers with those things anymore. Not now we've got emails so we can send phone messages. Dad lowers his eyes until his lashes tickle his cheeks. But your Mum insisted that she wanted to. She said someone out there would get her message. They might be very far away from her, but it would reach them and maybe they'd get in contact if she gave her address. And did someone get Mum's message? I swallow and blink rapidly. At this moment I don't care about parties or anything else. What I want most in the world is for someone to have replied to Mum's message in a bottle. Dad keeps his gaze steady, and when I lick my lips waiting for his reply, I taste the tang of salt. No, Dad admits eventually. She never did get a reply. A few years later we were looking at photos and we came across one from that day, and I asked your Mum if she minded that no one had ever replied, and Mum said someone would. There was still time. Dad sighs and rubs his eyes. But there wasn't time. I swallow again, and it's like my stomach is on a helter-skelter, whizzing downwards on a straw mat. I wish Mum could come back and give me a hug. I whisper, more to myself than anyone. Oh, son, if she could, she would. I could give you a hug in her place, if that would count. Mum would be happy with that. I nod and take the hug from Dad, and I close my eyes and imagine it's Mum, even though Dad's about 3 times the size and he smells of fish and sweat and pine forests. And I imagine Mum smelling of vanilla cupcakes and flowers. For one pure and perfect second, it almost feels real, and I don't want to let Dad go. If I try really hard, I can imagine Mum's heartbeat. Then Dad pulls away, and just like that, it feels like Mum has gone again.